Have you ever noticed that some people have an almost supernatural control over the atmosphere around them? They don't shout or beg. They simply withdraw without a word, and suddenly, everything changes. The energy shifts. People begin to question, to chase after them, to feel something. Now imagine you doing the same. What would happen if you stopped reacting immediately to everything? If you chose silence over automatic responses, withdrawal over outbursts? This is precisely the point. When you stop being constantly available, emotionally, physically, psychologically, the world around you enters a crisis. Because people have become accustomed to controlling you through your reactions, your impulses, your predictability. But the day you choose to withdraw, the game changes. And those who thought they knew you realize they actually know nothing about you. Carl Jung said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." Now think about this. When you become inaccessible, who is the one truly left helpless? Who gets angry? Who tries to provoke you just to extract a tiny crumb of emotion from you? This situation reveals more about the other person than it does about you. And most importantly, it exposes how much you've been manipulated without even realizing it. You're trying to please, to keep the peace, to avoid losing people who, deep down, were never truly with you. And with every forced yes, every instant reply, every emotional reaction, you're giving away a piece of your energy. What remains at the end of the day? Fatigue, disappointment, an unexplainable void. And let us tell you why. Because you are being overly available to those who don't even deserve a minute of your silence. This video is not about turning your back on the world. It's about choosing yourself, about embracing what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole and authentic. And this process begins when you understand that silence can be more powerful than 1,000 arguments. Withdrawal, when it comes from awareness and not from escape, is a tremendous act of power. So I ask you now, looking you in the eye, how much longer will you allow yourself to be controlled by the emotions of others? How much longer will you react like a puppet when someone touches your wound? Perhaps it is time to cut those strings, to withdraw and become an enigma. Because when you stop being available, everything changes. You were taught to always be available. To say please, to reply instantly, to say yes even when you wanted to say no. Since childhood, you were conditioned to believe that your worth lies in how accommodating you are to others. But there is a truth perhaps no one has openly told you. This over-accommodation is not a virtue. It's a prison. And as long as you believe you must always be reachable emotionally or otherwise, you will be manipulated, drained, and forgotten the moment you are no longer useful. Why? Because being always available makes you predictable, and anything predictable becomes a tool. People start using you like an emotional emergency button. They press it when they want attention, comfort, validation, and then they put you back on the shelf. But you don't notice this. Because you are under the illusion that being available for everyone will one day make someone available for you. But that's not how it works. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to be accepted, loved, recognized. And it is precisely this mask that makes you overly available. You say, "It's okay," even while drowning. You reply to messages instantly, even when tired. You explain yourself. You defend yourself as if you owed something to the world. But the truth is, the more you place yourself at the center of others' stages, the further you move away from yourself. Being always available is a subtle form of self-abandonment. It's a covert way of seeking approval and avoiding rejection. It's an attempt to control others' image of you. But this control has a cost: your peace. Your vital energy is distributed as if it were infinite. Yet it is limited. Very limited. The people who want you always available don't actually want you. They want what you provide: validation, companionship, distraction, emotional comfort. But when you change, when you set boundaries, When you refuse to react, these same people get angry. They accuse you, say you've become strange. The reason is not your change, but your cessation of being functional for them. And here is the most brutal point. The more available you are, the less others value you. Because what is overly abundant becomes devalued. No one respects what they don't have to earn. No one appreciates what is always there. So now, stop and think. Who truly deserves your time? Who deserves your attention? Who deserves your presence, your listening, or even better, your absence? But before answering, we need to understand something fundamental. Why do we react so much? Why do we give in so easily? What lies behind this almost automatic desire to react, justify, and please? The answer lies in what Carl Jung called psychic energy. Our mind is like an energy system, and every thought, feeling, and action consumes part of this energy. The question is, do you choose where your energy goes, or do you let the world decide for you? Jung said, what you resist persists. The more you react, the more you bind yourself to it. People living in emotional exhaustion are not weak. They are misdirected. And do you know what happens to an exhausted person? They become vulnerable. And when you are vulnerable, you become easy prey for the manipulative, the opportunistic, the emotionally needy. A healthy psyche, Jung suggested, knows how to retain energy within the system. This means knowing how to say no without guilt, how to remain silent without feeling cowardly, knowing how to observe before acting. Because real power lies not in reacting, but in choosing when and how to act. And this is only possible when you know yourself well enough to recognize your own impulses. Start observing your triggers. What is it that makes you react automatically? These are the precise points where your energy leaks, and it is there that you need to work, not to become cold, but to gain sovereignty over yourself, to become selective. Here comes one of Jung's greatest revelations. When you conserve your energy, you break the projections that others place on you, and this disturbs them greatly. Because we are now entering the shadowy realm of silent manipulation. You think you are in control. You believe your reactions are conscious choices. But the truth is darker. Most of your emotional reactions are programmed, and those who understand this can easily manipulate you. When you stop reacting, the game is disrupted. When you start saying no, responding with silence, withdrawing instead of explaining, the projections begin to shatter. The mask they placed on you falls off, and this unsettles people. Because they no longer know who you are. And worse, they now have to look at themselves. And not everyone is ready for that. Your inaccessibility is a threat. Because it forces others to confront their own voids. The silence you offer brings out the inner noise they don't want to hear. And then comes the attack. Criticism, emotional drama. Not because you are wrong, but because you have stopped being a convenient mirror for them. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. When you withdraw, when you stop feeding the cycle, the shadow of others begins to emerge. And this is unbearable for those who have used you as an escape route. But are you prepared to face the discomfort of being misunderstood, rejected, or even attacked in order to protect yourself? Are you ready to endure the silence that follows the break? Because it is precisely in that silence that a new kind of power is born. The modern world is noisy. Everyone wants to be heard, to reply quickly, to win meaningless arguments and prove their point, even at the cost of their own peace. But there is a power that few know, and even fewer master, the power of silence. Not the silence of passivity or cowardice, but a conscious, strategic, ruthlessly clear silence. A silence that is not an absence, but a potent presence. Jung saw silence not as a void, but as fertile ground for inner transformation. When you stop reacting, you start observing, and by observing, you see previously unnoticed patterns, emotional repetitions, manipulation games, self-sabotaging cycles. Silence allows for clarity, And clarity is dangerous for those who live to control you. Have you noticed how some people panic when you don't respond, don't explain, simply disappear? It's not because they miss you, but because your silence takes away their control over the narrative. While you are talking, you are still in the game. But when you are silent, you change the rules, and this destabilizes everyone who feeds on your reactions. Real silence is not the absence of sound. It is mastering your own energy. It is refusing to be pulled down by the emotions of others. It is the conscious choice not to enter battles not worth fighting. Jung said that individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are, requires this distance. Because only in silence, without the world's interference, can you listen to yourself. But don't be mistaken. Silence has a price. It distances you from people who only value you for the role you play. It makes you incomprehensible to those who only see you through their projections. It makes you appear cold, distant, arrogant. But all this is a reaction from those interested only in your utility. And here is the painful truth. As you mature, you become more selective with your words. Because you understand that every sentence is an energetic investment, and not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes, this is not withdrawal but sovereignty. It is the language of those who have nothing to prove to anyone. Silence is disturbing, because it forces the other to be alone with their own thoughts, their own inner noise. And this discomfort reveals more than any argument you could make. You don't need to explain your absence. It explains itself, and those who feel threatened by it reveal how dependent they are on your reactivity to maintain their control. But the most powerful silence is not the one that disturbs the other, but the one that rebuilds you from within. The silence that connects you to something beyond external validation, to your own center, free from others. It is in this inner space that you need to reconnect with your essence, to begin reclaiming your vital energy. Understanding all this intellectually is of no use if you continue to say yes when you want to say no. Reply to disturbing messages, engage in empty conversations, and maintain relationships that exist only out of inertia. Real transformation begins when you decisively choose to be selective, and this requires emotional discipline. Conscious inaccessibility is not about being cold, arrogant, or indifferent. It's not about being unavailable to anyone, anytime, for any reason. It's about taking control of your own energy, your own time, your own peace. And it starts with small actions, not replying instantly, taking a breath before reacting, walking away from an argument before being dragged into chaos, turning off your phone without guilt, saying, "Not today, I'm not interested, I won't engage." The most important part is that you don't need to justify your absence, to explain your silence. You owe nothing to anyone but yourself. And this is unforgivable to many people. Because by refusing to explain yourself, you take away their power to keep you within a certain emotional narrative as the always helpful, understanding, available person. Carl Jung understood that every process of individuation passes through a period of isolation. But not a depressive isolation, a sacred one. A time of inner retreat where you relearn to listen to your own voice without the world's interference. A time where you rebuild your identity based on your own center, not on the gaze of others. Do you want a good thermometer for your evolution? Observe those who distance themselves when you become more reserved. Observe those who try to provoke you when you stop reacting. Observe those who accuse you of changing when you finally start protecting yourself. These are not signs that you are wrong. They are proof that you are beginning to liberate yourself. Being inaccessible is uncomfortable at first. You will feel guilty. You will think you are selfish. You will be called harsh. But this is part of the deconstruction process. You have spent your life conditioned to put yourself second. It is natural that change creates discomfort, not only in you, but in everyone who benefited from the old version of you. Conscious inaccessibility is the foundation of self-determination. When you say no to the world, you say yes to yourself. When you withdraw from a toxic environment, you reaffirm that your peace is more valuable than any false connection. And when you stop explaining yourself, you begin to gain respect, even if only from a few. But not everyone is prepared for such a presence. Because your emotional absence will bring wounds to the surface that they don't want to face. It will reveal how dependent they were on your emotional chaos to feel in control. And at this very moment, the break occurs. With the break comes pain. Loneliness, alienation, the feeling of losing something even as you liberate yourself. But what comes after? What emerges from the silence? When you stop being available to everyone, something profound begins to happen. First comes silence. An unsettling silence where you scream inside, wondering if you're doing the right thing, if you're being too harsh, if you're losing people who love you. But gradually, this silence transforms. It begins to clear, to calm, to heal. And then comes loneliness. But not the loneliness of absence. The loneliness of full presence, of being with yourself. The loneliness of the strong. The loneliness of someone who no longer betrays themselves to keep others close. In that inner space where there was once chaos, clarity emerges. Where there was anxiety, peace arrives. Where there was neediness, a new kind of power comes, the power of being whole within yourself. Carl Jung said that the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are, requires separating yourself from the collective, shedding the mask and walking alone for a while. And by choosing to be inaccessible, that is exactly what you are doing. You are not escaping the world. You are returning to yourself. It is the point where you cease to be someone who reacts and become someone who creates. You stop being shaped by circumstances and begin to shape your reality from within. The people who are disturbed by your absence reveal that they never really wanted you. They only wanted the role you played. Since you no longer fit that mold, they don't know what to do with you. And this liberates you. You will lose people, but you will find yourself. You will withdraw from some places, but you will rediscover your essence. You will be misunderstood, but you will eventually begin to gain respect. Because when you are no longer available for anything, you become valuable, rare, unforgettable, and don't be deceived. This is a rebirth. The beginning of a life where you are no longer available for emotional crumbs, mind games, or voids disguised as love. You now accept only what is in harmony with you, with your truth, with your integrity. If you have made it this far, it is because a part of you is ready for this new path. A part of you has understood that being loved means nothing if you have to abandon yourself for it, and that real self-love begins when you choose yourself. Now tell me, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, or even hated for the sake of your inner freedom? Are you ready to pay the price of being alone for a while? If this message resonated with you, if it made sense, write in the comments, "I choose my peace." Let's see how many people here are ready for this transition. And remember, keep taking the next step. It is more important than you think. Until next time.